I'm Haley Taylor, and you're listening to the Rough Draft Diaries. It's time for the Rough Draft Diaries Thanksgiving special, where traditionally we head into a local chef's kitchen as they teach us a holiday recipe just in time for Thanksgiving. This year, we're really going behind the scenes as we head into my own kitchen. And when I say my own kitchen, I really mean my mom's kitchen, as she is the best cook in the family.
All right. I'm ready. I was born ready.
Okay, so first of all, what are we making today?
We are making the quintessential Canadian dessert, which are butter tarts.
I'm half Canadian, if you didn't know. Canadian on my mom's side.
There's a long-standing history with butter tarts. They were first kind of published in a little teeny tiny leaflet recipe book in like the 1900s, like early 1900. But before that, you know, farm wives and families would just toss back and forth their recipes for butter tarts. And they are always highly critical. Canadians are, that's the only thing they're critical about.
Is the butter tarts.
Is the butter tart. Okay. Should it be gooey? Should it be sticky? Should it have raisins in it? Most people have definite opinions on how a butter tart should taste. My family, you know, we have so many great cooks in our family. Mm-hmm. And my mom never really made a lot of butter tarts, but when we would go to like the Gilmore Christmas family party, we would do big celebrations. There'd always be butter tarts on the table. My dad, Grandpa, would put butter on his butter tarts.
Of course he would.
Like about 3 tablespoons of butter on his butter tart. And they are just like little tiny little muffin-sized tarts.
And with that, let's jump on into making these little guys. The first thing we're going to start with is the pie dough. We need 2.5 cups of flour, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 cup, which is 2 sticks of cold salted butter, 3/4 of a cup of cold water, and 1 teaspoon of vinegar.
Some people say vinegar doesn't do anything, but I put a little vinegar in. I think it makes the pastry a little bit more flaky.
Starting with the dry ingredients first, add your flour, sugar, and salt into a large bowl.
Kind of blend that all in together.
Then grab your first stick of butter. Very carefully chop the butter into about 1-inch size little squares. Then using your mixing tool, incorporate them into the flour.
And it takes a few minutes to make sure you don't have big lumps in there. And the first cutting in.
Then repeat with your second stick of cold butter, again chopping it into 1-inch pieces. However, when you incorporate the second stick of butter, use your fingers instead of a mixing tool to break the butter into the flour.
Yep, I'm just picking it up and then moving my thumbs over my fingers and breaking it up and getting that flour into the butter, but not so much so that it's totally melting because you want it to stay cold. So now I'm going to put my wet ingredients in. Ice cold water, 3/4 of a cup. And then I just put a splash of vinegar in there, about a teaspoon, half a teaspoon.
Grab a spatula and make a well into the flour mixture. Add the water into that hole you just made and then start to mix it together.
It's supposed to look kind of craggy, and then I test it. Does it stay together in a ball? Yep, so it's good.
Divide and shape the dough into 2 flat rounds, about 6 inches wide and 2 inches tall. Wrap them in plastic wrap and stick them in the fridge for about an hour, because
you do not want melted butter in your pie dough. Just make a mess of your pie dough. It'll make it like cardboard.
Once the dough has chilled for an hour, you can take it out and begin the rolling process, which begins first with hitting the unwrapped dough with a rolling pin. It's kind of fun.
Ready.
Hitting the dough helps it to push out into shape. You just want to hit it a few times, rotate it, hit it a few times, rotate it. Once it starts to flatten out, you can actually start rolling it with the same idea.
And I roll it, turn it, roll it, turn it.
Once it's fully rolled out, about 1/8 of an inch thick, use a cookie cutter or a biscuit cutter to cut 12 circles of dough, which are gently pressed into a muffin tin, making 12 individual tart shells. Make sure to keep the dough cold by putting the muffin tin in the fridge while we work on the filling.
2 eggs, that's where we're going to start.
These eggs should be at room temperature.
We whisk those.
To the whisked eggs, you're going to add 2 tablespoons of vinegar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and 2 packed cups of brown sugar.
You just stir all of that in. So at this point, I remember I need to turn on the oven. So we're baking and we're baking at 375.
Once you remember to turn your oven on, you can return back to the filling, adding half of a cup of melted but not hot butter. Mix that all together until it turns into like a little bit of a butterscotch color.
You can just put this in your tart shell and bake it like this. Some people take their tart shells and they'll put chocolate chips in the bottom, but the purists would probably put currants in, and that's what we're going to do.
Add about 3/4 of a cup of dried currants, and that's the filling done. So grab the muffin pans from the fridge and pour the batter into each dough-lined cup.
And you really only want to fill it up 2/3 full because these things kind of plump up, they bake up. You don't want a hot mess in your oven.
Once each cup is full, bake them for about 18 to 23 minutes. You know they're done when the tart crust is a light golden brown and the filling has puffed up.
And that's it.
Great. Now, I know we moved really fast. That was probably a lot. But you can follow up with my mom's recipe for butter tarts on our website, wgte.org, and on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Rough Draft Diaries. And of course, make sure to have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Whether you've already celebrated in October like the Canadians do, or you're celebrating it tomorrow, from my family to yours, happy holidays.